Wrapping things up. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. I feel trying to end the school week on a positive note, so we have
Yep.
you here. You're ready to get started. I know you have another engagement at 7.
Yep.
All right. Before we begin, I like to have these icebreakers kind of questions. You all know the pandemic has been devastating. So, if you can, what song, movie, or book would you use to describe your life during the pandemic and why?
Mm. Um. I don't know, like a specific song doesn't come to mind, but I listen to a lot of gospel music just to try to encourage myself because I think, you know, I'm naturally somebody who wants to spent a lot of time thinking about ideas, but I think it's definitely been hard to be inside for so long and not be able to be, as creative as you'd like to be with other people in person. I think has been really hard, and so definitely a lot of gospel music I think has been the mainstay of me trying to just stay as encouraged as I can.
Got you. And I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce you. Everyone. We have Lindsay Peoples Wagner. Excuse me. Welcome again.
Thank you. Okay.
uh, Before we start again, I like to read your bio. Lindsay Peoples Wagner is currently the editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue, a role she has held since October 2018, and co-founder of the Black in Fashion Council. Peoples Wagner previously spent 5 years as the editor at The Cut and New York Magazine, a role she took following her time as the fashion market reporter at Style.com. And she will be the new editor-in-chief at The Cut, I believe, at the end of this week. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
While at The Cut, she won the ASME Next Award in 2017, honoring outstanding achievement by magazine journalists under the age of 30, and wrote the critically acclaimed Everywhere and Nowhere, What It's Really Like to Be Black and Work in Fashion, that featured more than 100 people of color's insights and perspective on diversity in fashion. More recently, Wagner was celebrated among Business of Fashion's 2019 Business of Fashion 500 and named to the 2020 Forbes 30 Under 30 list. Early in her career, Peoples Wagner spent 2 years as a fashion market assistant at Teen Vogue, where she returned after a stint at the Oprah magazine. It was at Teen Vogue where she began her career as an assistant working in the fashion closet under the founding editor-in-chief, Amy Astel. Peoples Wagner, who hails from Wisconsin, graduated from Buena Vista University and with a bachelor's degree in art and journalism, and currently resides in Brooklyn. So, again, welcome. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
To get into the session, uh can you talk about the emotion you've experienced by leaving a publication you've been with for over 2 years, Teen Vogue?
Yeah, I mean, it's bittersweet. I love my staff, I love my team, but growth requires a lot of change, and so I think for me it was more so something that just needed to happen in order for me to advance in my career. But definitely still really close with everyone and rooting for them from afar.
Got you. As we know, the pandemic has been a hindrance to many. How has the pandemic affected you and your work?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone is tired of Zoom. Everyone's a little over it. I mean, we had a lot of different events for Teen Vogue last year that we had planned and ended up having to do this virtually. And that was actually really challenging to do virtual events in a way that was interesting, because I feel like if you're just on Zoom every day, you're kind of like, okay, well, why do I need to go into an event on Zoom as well? And so we had to come up with ways to make programming and everything really interactive, to make things really interesting for people, and engaging, even though they're virtual. And that's just a lot harder to do because this is never a space that we've been in before. I mean, I never even used Zoom before the pandemic. So it's definitely been an adjustment, but I think it also really opened up the opportunity to talk to a lot of other people that we may not have before the pandemic, and have a lot of people part of our events that usually may not be able to attend in person to be able to interact with virtually.
Got you. And to get into your career, you graduated with a bachelor's degree and you attended the University of London and the London College of Fashion. Can you talk about can you talk about your matriculation through these colleges and how to help you become a journalist?
Yeah, I mean, I always really liked to write, but I definitely felt like it was a lot of other things as well. And I just had really good mentorship and guidance in college. I remember not really knowing what I wanted to do, and two of my professors specifically taking me aside and being like, "Okay, but like, we don't want you to just get lost here. We don't want you to just get just lost in a mix of you're here at school and then you leave and nothing really happens." And so they planted a lot of seeds in me, and they spent a lot of time with me as far as giving me just some exposure to hear some opportunities, try some of these things. You may not like some of these core classes you have to do, but like, here's some fun opportunities that we think you'd be interested in. And I think just having them in my corner and rooting for me just gave me the motivation that I would find something that I really wanted to do. And so one of those professors actually had told me about an internship at Teen Vogue that she saw online. And she was like, "I just think you should try it." And she wrote me a recommendation letter. And I really, I got into magazines ever since. So it wasn't really something that I necessarily chose or thought was possible, but definitely people around me just believing that it was possible for me.
As young journalists coming out of college, we have a lot of juniors and seniors in the Zoom session today. We may find it hard that we won't be able to get our first dream job right away after we graduate. What is some advice? What is some advice you would tell them as they are working towards that goal?
I mean, I didn't have a job on graduation day. I remember I was looking around, and it was like a bunch of like people who were like working like finance and stuff, or things, just other more corporate jobs, and they all had a job offer, and they all, had a day that they were going to start their job. And like, I didn't have any offer or anything on the table when I graduated. So I don't think that's necessarily a sign of anything. I think for me, it was like I knew I already had a ton of different internships and experiences already. And so it was just a matter of me connecting with different people again on different opportunities that that would open. And so I made sure any internship, apprenticeship opportunity, I stayed in contact with people, would email them every 6 months. I wasn't like, bothering them, but I definitely would like stay in contact with them so that when I did graduate, they would remember me, remember my work ethic, remember who I was. And it took me a few months to find an assistant level job, but I think you just have to be patient as far as, when you're leaving school, what is the best option for you to actually be in the best space to learn and have the experience to get to where you want to be.
Get into your career again. What is it about fashion that drives you and loves you and you love it so much that you want to write about it and cover it?
I think that so much just in the world and culture is driven by fashion. I think that fashion really determines so many decisions of, who's given a lot of opportunities in culture, whether it's on covers of magazines or, campaign endorsements, or, who we define as cool or worthy, I think is really driven by fashion. And so I think for me, it always was a place that was really ripe for opportunity that was lacking representation.
Got you. And when you were freelancing, I know throughout your career you were a freelance journalist. How did you pitch your stories, and how did you handle the rejection if they weren't picked up?
I have to say, I mean, I really think that pitching is totally fine. I just think that pitching is something that people have to understand. You can't cast a wide net, and I think people a lot of times want to just pitch 8 publications a story. Like, you really have to develop a relationship with different editors. You need to do your research, and you need to do your homework as far as, okay, so maybe I mean, I would narrow down literally 5 publications that I really enjoyed reading, and then I would, look at who they were publishing, the content they were publishing, following the editors on social media, kind of, seeing what they were interested in, et cetera, and really trying to develop a relationship with specific people. And I think that always is so much smarter than just like, let me email 8 different people that I can find on social media, whatever, because you're not building a relationship with people. And I can just more easily say no if I don't know you and I don't, we haven't talked about pitches. Whereas if I feel like you've been able to send me a pitch and we've been able to talk about why I didn't, take it, I think it's just a lot easier to build a relationship. So then you can have that relationship with someone to regularly pitch.
When it comes to relationship building, how do you like cultivate a good relationship with a possible mentor or even a mentee?
I think the smartest thing, honestly, always to do is to try to work for the person. I also think that too many times, I think young people always go to the top person, so they'll always come to me instead of there are a lot of people who work for Teen Vogue besides me that would be really great mentors. I get asked to be a mentor every other day, every other second. So it's not, I think, you have to also think about, okay, what's the likelihood of this person having the time? They're already doing so much, et cetera. And I think choosing people that may not be as high as you expect, but you would be able to learn from. I mean, I also think that lateral mentoring is really, really important, because a lot of people that may be on your level, on not exactly your level, but doing something maybe in a, you know, junior level and you're just starting out kind of relationship would actually also make sense, because you never know where that person is going to go, and they may not be senior level or executive, but if they're, an assistant editor or something like that, like I think that's always a really good way to try to develop a relationship as well, instead of just going to the boss's boss, because they'll be able to kind of give you the real, and I think develop more of a genuine relationship.
Got you, got you. That's interesting. That's very interesting to know. When you're Black in fashion, sometimes your voice is not heard. When you cover fashion, how do you ensure that Black voices are represented?
I mean, it's in hiring. I've hired all people of color. I think it's also just in, being intentional. I think that if you're intentional about the work that you do, then you're not just doing whatever with the site. I think all of it has really been incredibly strategic, and I think a lot of times when people see, Teen Vogue, or they see, certain work, it's like, oh, that just makes sense, it's so good, but all of that is strategy. All of that has been planned out of what you see and why you see it. And for us, it really was, making sure that we had an intersectionality of different kinds of voices, and that Teen Vogue really was a place that young people felt seen and heard, and like a place that they could connect to as far as a community, and talking about things that I think other brands would be scared to, or may feel like are not appropriate for teens or young people in general to talk about. And we really wanted to be a resource for young people, whether you're in high school or college, and give you the information to make your own decisions and choices on your own, instead of not covering certain things. So I mean, we cover abortion, we cover sex, we cover sending nudes. Like we've written about a lot of things that I think are really important, because I don't want to ever act like, I never wanted to like talk down to young people or make young people feel like these aren't things that you're talking to your friends about already. And to me, it was more so of, these are things that young people are really interested about. It's just smarter for us to have the conversation in an open and intersectional manner. And, once you have those tools and resources, you can decide what's best for your own life.
What are some struggles you faced early on in your career as a journalist that helped you get to where you are now?
I mean, I think the whole process has really required a special kind of resilience that I didn't know that I had. I think my big thing that I always share with people, with young people, about like wanting to start out writing is, especially if you're wanting to start out writing in a publication, the pay is really low. And so when I moved here to New York, I was working 3 jobs to be able to make ends meet. And I think that you definitely come in really hungry and you want to do all these things. But like, obviously, when you start working for someone, they may just want you to do assistant work and not actually be writing. You may get a job that I've had plenty of jobs where it was like, I remember my boss's coffee order and their lunch order and all of those things. So I think you have to keep all of those things in mind, because definitely for me, it was a struggle financially. And it definitely, I think, changes the trajectory for a lot of people, where there are a lot of opportunities that are unpaid or that aren't, paid well enough for you to be able to live off of. And you may just have to hustle for a few years. But I think, that mentality, I think, has really stayed with me, because I'm still hustling as an editor in chief. And I think, you realize even with the big titles that there's still so much work to do, and there's still, you still have to have that hunger.
As you say, you are the editor-in-chief. Can you talk about being the editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue and your experience in that position?
Yeah, I mean, it was my third time back at the brand. So I'd interned at Teen Vogue. I worked at Teen Vogue as an assistant. So my third time I came back as editor in chief. And I'm super grateful to have that kind of full circle moment to come back at a place that I've worked at and interned at before. I think that I really wanted to change a lot because of my experiences and because of what the publication was in the past. And I've been, fortunate enough to be able to do a lot of the things that I always dreamed of. I mean, it's very crazy to me because I grew up watching The Hills, and I was really obsessed with Teen Vogue when I found out what it was, and to be able to go back as editor in chief, it's really been an incredible experience.
What are some of your biggest pet peeves when you're the editor-in-chief when it comes to editing stories or receiving pitches?
Well, when people send pitches, there's a lot. I mean, I think when people send pitches probably to me, which you would think I want them, but honestly, I really don't, because there's a lot of editors. I have a lot of senior editors, and those are the people that you should actually be reaching out to, because they're
Right.
actually the ones editing the section. My inbox is always crazy. So I feel like when people are trying to send me pitches, it's a little like, I'm not going to see this in time. So you should probably send this to the culture director, our identities director, et cetera. And that requires research on your part. But if you want to write, then you need to Google, and you need to actually look at, follow people on Twitter, find these people. Their information is out there. It just takes a little bit more of a research. But I think reaching out to the right people. And I also think, again, like developing those relationships with the editors, because we have a lot of freelance writers that we work with on a consistent basis. And yeah, those writers are going to get a response quicker in the inbox. Or if I know one of those freelance writers is like, oh, I really want to write something, I want Lindsay to look at something, it's more likely that I'm going to do it because I know who they are. So I do think that definitely is something that people have to realize.
Got you. What did you, as you talked about the importance of having a mentor, and how it helped shape your career? What did you learn working under Amy Estelle when you were an assistant at Teen Vogue?
Yeah, I mean, I think as an assistant, you just come in so hot and hungry of like wanting to do all these things. And I think you also have to realize that there are all these other things at play of what it is to start out at a magazine. And I think definitely for me, it just taught me that there were so many different areas of a publication to work on. And it really opened up a new door for me of not wanting to be solely a fashion person, and really wanting to be more of a senior editor, an executive editor, an editor at large, an editor in chief, because I didn't feel like I was solely a fashion person. I feel like I have a lot to talk about when we, reference the culture, and what do we mean in talking about the zeitgeist. And I felt like there was just so much more to me than kind of the traditional roles in fashion. And I think starting out at Teen Vogue kind of showed me that. And so when I had spent a couple of years at Teen Vogue as an assistant, and I left to go do an online writing job at style.com, which merged into vogue.com, because I was like, I really want to get experience also writing for all these sites and doing different things, because I knew early on that I didn't want to be pigeonholed.
Got you. When you wrote your critically acclaimed piece, Everywhere and Nowhere, What It's Really Like to Be Black and Work in the Fashion, what was your inspiration and experience covering and writing the story?
Um, I just felt like there needed to be something that felt substantial that we would look back at and really reference, as far as the advancements and things that haven't happened in fashion. And I felt like I was mid-level at that time as an editor, and I felt like there were a lot of mid to senior level people in media that were still really struggling. And to me, it felt like this tipping point of, if the mid to senior level people are really struggling, what hope is there for younger people of color to want to be in media, to want to work at magazines? And so it felt like the right time. Edward had just been appointed at British Vogue, and Virgil at Vuitton. And so it felt like there were some things happening, but not enough. And I think that's still the same. I mean, I think the piece rings true in a lot of different ways, but I mean, a lot of the companies, even now, I think, may have a diverse group of employees, but a lot of them are assistants or entry level. There's not really that many Black executives or Black, industry stakeholders that are leading these brands or creative directors at the big brands.
Got you. And when you attended the school in London, you were in the country, like overseas.
Yeah, I studied abroad.
So, can you talk about that? Like, what made you decide to go take your talents to across the Atlantic?
I just wanted more exposure. I mean, I think that anytime you can travel and you can go somewhere else and see life in a different way, I think you should totally do it. I also think like when you're in school, like you don't really have any other responsibilities. And so it's honestly the best time to do it. And you don't have like adult bills yet. So I just was kind of like, I'm going to do it. And to me, it also just was a differentiating fact on my resume of like, having spent time in London and Paris. It felt like I just had some other references and other notes on my resume that would be good talking points or wanting, good points for people to want to hire me. And it's, it turned out to be really useful. I feel like the more, experience that you have on your resume that isn't just the standard of what other people are doing, the better. And so it really did stand out when I was applying because, some people would be like, oh, so about this designer that's really popular only in London, or, I had some contacts in London that came in handy when I was, assisting and trying to figure out a story. So I think it just helps diversify your resume and it give you experience on, other opportunities.
As we know, last summer it was crazy with the protests going on, Black Lives Matter and things like that. Given everything that is happening around the world, even currently with the events at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, how have you been able to prioritize your mental health and self-care?
I mean, I honestly think it's setting boundaries with a lot of people and in what I'm going to do and how I'm going to give my time. I mean, I think that for someone like me, it's always, something I could be doing or something somebody I should be texting or calling or anything like that. And I think it's been a lot of like me setting the boundaries of like, what do I need to do to actually relax my mind? Because, I go to therapy every week and I think that's really helpful. And I'm very pro therapy and, making sure that you're self-aware of what's going on inside of you. But I also think, being aware of like how much energy you give to other people and your time, I think has really been an eye opener for me to make sure that, I'm actually having that time to relax and do nothing and not be on.
With all of your accomplishments, who has influenced you to become who you are today?
I mean, I honestly would just say my family. I mean, there was never anybody in fashion that I felt like was doing the kind of work that I really wanted to do. But I think that my family has been a really great inspiration and support system for me to be able to, continue, especially during the times when I felt like it was a little too hard and like I wanted to go back to Wisconsin, but they've always been really supportive of me and incredibly encouraging.
When you went, because you won a lot of accolades and have a ton of accomplishments, sometimes people get complacent when they receive these awards. How have you stayed true to yourself and stay focused on your passion?
I mean, awards and accolades are nice, but I don't think that, it doesn't determine your work. And I don't think it should drive, why you do things or why you continue to do things. I mean, they're a nice additive, but, I think for me, I spend a lot of time thinking about the people that have come before me. I spend a lot of time thinking about my grandmothers, my ancestors, and I think that, a lot of times I feel like it is too hard, it is too much, and all of those things, are nice for a moment, but I really do feel like I have to push a lot more. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I would be doing them a disservice if I gave up and I just got complacent. And I don't think that I've honestly earned the right to be lazy and to not push it as far as I can.
What are your hopes for the future of journalism?
I mean, I hope that, in 10 years, honestly, that we don't have to talk about diversity and inclusion. That would be great if it was just something that everybody was already doing and really committed to. I mean, that's the goal. There's all these like head of D&I at all these corporations, and it would be nice to that role not even be a thing because it's required of everyone at the company, and not having to tell people, why you shouldn't say the N-word and why these microaggressions are, appropriate. That's honestly the goal, but I think it's going to take a long time to get there.
Got you. And we are at the last question before we get to the Q&A session. I just want to say thank you again for your time. I know it was very valuable. And the last question, knowing all of what you know now, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self personally and professionally?
I mean, I think the resilience portion of what I said earlier is really important because I think that it can be really easy to look on social media and see people living a certain life and, compare of like what they're able to do or how it looks. And I'm always encouraging young people, like, find your hunger for the thing that you want to do, find the purpose of why you feel like you're on this earth and go after that with like all of the hunger that you have, and really be hungry to do the work that you feel like you're called to do, and less thirsty, to be, wanting for it to look cool on social media, less thirsty for attention, because all those things will come. And if you just focus on the work, I mean, everything else will fall into place.
Got you. Thank you so much. And now here's the question from Taylor Goodson. How do you make a genuine relationship with editors that's not forced?
I think honestly, if you're trying to make a relationship with an editor, I think, you can engage with them on social media, but you also, I think, emailing them and just saying like, hey, I would really love to start pitching for Teen Vogue. If you have 10 minutes, I'd love to like pitch you some ideas and pick your brain on the ways in which you would like me to pitch. And like, here's what I've done in the past, et cetera. Because I do think even just like posing the, letting them know what you've done in the past, but posing the question of like, how would you like me to do this that doesn't annoy you, is really refreshing to a lot of editors. And I think also the small things, like don't have spelling errors in there. You use a program, use Grammarly, whatever you got to do. No one really cares, but like make sure that it is actually a fully formed, well-written piece. And I think, again, like doing your research on what the section is already doing, because I think a lot of times I'll get pitches and I'm like, why would you think that we would even write about this? We've never written about anything like this. And it really just shows to me like a lack of you doing research. So then I'm not even interested in this. And I think that you really have to just be mindful of like who you're pitching and really just go after those few people, instead of just like, okay, I found all these different people, let me email them and see if they want this pitch.
Our vice president, Gianna Levy, asked, you've done so much at such a young age. How have you ever suffered from imposter syndrome? If so, how did you overcome it?
I don't really think I have imposter syndrome. I think I have felt very scared or worried a lot during my career. And I think that's pretty normal. I mean, media is always moving. So I think that a lot of times it can feel like there's too much shifting. But I think honestly, for me, it was always, I really had tunnel vision on what I wanted to do. And so it didn't matter to me that I had to work 3 jobs. Like I obviously hated it and I would cry all the time, but I just was like, well, this is what I have to do. Like, this is what I have to do to be able to get to be an editor. And that's what I did. And I think, I mean, I had somebody, I was doing a talk the other day say, I've been offered this internship, but it's unpaid. So like, what am I supposed to do? And it's like, hustle like that. I mean, if you really want it that bad, anything in life, you will figure it out. And for me, it was like, I, would always freelance copyright or freelance write for random sites that just would pay me, here and there, $100, whatever it was. I was always helping on shoots at night, and helping, stylists that would, pay me on the side. I would change mannequins at stores at night. And then on the weekends, I always waitressed. So it meant no days off for me. But I think, that was to me like, if you want it that bad, like you will do it.
Got you. And Taylor Goodson asked, what advice would you give a young journalist trying to break into the fashion industry?
I feel like I already answered that.
Gotcha. With so many responsibilities, how do you set boundaries and find balance between your work and personal life?
Um, I mean, I like to do a lot of different things. I usually delete Instagram on my phone every weekend, which I really enjoy because I just feel like people kind of get into a competition of let's all look like who's having the most fun on social media or who's doing something, that you feel like you should be missing out on. And I think just not engaging with that on the weekends, like when I'm trying to relax and ideate on other things, is really helpful. I also think, like, as a journalist, you want to be able to spend your time reading and just digesting really good writing. And so it's been nice for me to not be on social media so much on the weekends, because I just spend the time reading books that I really enjoy that have nothing to do with fashion and nothing to do with my job. Fiction books that I just really enjoy to read, or I spend a lot of time reading the news and different publications that I admire, and I can just take my time doing that, instead of being on social media and try to engage with other people. And I got off Twitter years ago, so I'm not on there. And I felt like that was also really good for me of setting a boundary, because I feel like, especially journalists love being on Twitter, obviously, because it's really good to share your writing. But I felt like it kind of has forced people to just have instant reactions and, informed opinions very quickly, without having time to digest it and just think about things. And so I think that, you choose the boundaries that make sense for your own life. But I definitely think that for me, it's just been strategic as far as finding the space to still relax, finding space to just enjoy reading, since I have to read so much for work, and finding some time to still, come up with some ideas, which often come when I'm just reading or doing something that has nothing to do with my job.
Got you. And the last question, it's from me. We've seen how the progression of media throughout history, TV, radio, TV, then social media. What do you think will be the next innovation in media?
I think a lot of the apps of, like, how you can talk to people are obviously really, really popular right now. I personally do really love TikTok. I think it's just funny and it's really enjoyable. And I like that it feels like a way to easily digest a lot of content that, usually feels a little bit daunting. Like, obviously there's a ton of dancing or cooking videos or things like that, but there's a lot of TikTokers that we've covered on Teen Vogue that are, reporters on immigration, or, writing on really important topics on sustainability, and making it in a more digestible, easy to understand format on TikTok, I think is actually really smart. And I think actually gets people to understand a lot of topics that they may feel like are a little bit too complicated to understand to really get on board. So I think there's always pros and cons to social media, but I think TikTok has been really nice because people on TikTok, get famous because of who they are authentically and not the other way around. And I think some of the other apps have kind of promoted this like influencer perfect lifestyle, whereas TikTok people are really just themselves. And so I really enjoy that and looking forward to that growth.
Got you. And that is it. I would like to thank you for attending this. We really appreciate it at NABJ-CAU.
Yeah, of course. Thank you all so much.
All right. And have a great day.
You too.
All right.